Okay, let's see if we can get this video sorted. Some of you know I've been talking about an ecosystem. An ecosystem that will eventually go in this corner on top of these drawers. And basically what we gonna go ahead with, it's an enclosure of a tropical or aquatic occupants. There will be a possibility of, well, I'll see how well it evolves over time, and there'll be secondary. You got in there a secondary enclosure here, actually connected to this enclosure here. That's something else I'm playing with. We'll get there if I get there. First of all, the enclosure needs to be coming in, and it needs the substrate down, some things that look aesthetically appealing, driftwood, and plants planted that feed off that substrate, of course, water and so on. And it needs to be seeded as well. What does that mean? Here, I have. That looks ugly, doesn't it? It looks, what's growing on in there? This is basically put tap water in here. There's no occupants I bought to come into here. This is tap water. To square wooden blocks, a knot out of a wooden panel of our fencing, the knot came out of the wood, put that in there, put some dead leaves in there, put some button mushrooms in there. And it's beginning to not be so clear, and I put this top on. It's kind of like I've got a self seal thing around it, and in the window there's photosynthesis happening, there's algae, there's gases being exchanged. Pouring that into the enclosure to start with helps seed some process going on. Not all bacteria is, people hear the word bacteria, well, a large part of the biology, large part of your biology will not work without beneficial bacteria. The human body, a large part of the biology of the occupants will not work without beneficial seeded environment. You don't want it to be too sterile. Things get out of balance. And can you imagine living in a 6x6 cube, 6 foot by 6? That's your home now. There's no outside. You don't go nowhere. That's it. You eat, defecate, and urinate there. The air's not going to be too good. The ammonia is going to erode your lungs, and so you're going to have a very rough time of it. So, I feel it's horrible when I see these people out there. It's like just plopping a fish into something that looks fancy, but it's tiny, and the fish has got nowhere to swim. And it's like, what are you doing? That fish is gonna be dead in a few days, or if you're lucky. Well, goldfish are very tough, and it'd still be dead in a very short lifespan. Relative to better lifespan, we have kept tropical fish, cold water fish, and started with cold water, and then started getting more involved with tropical. We had a pond out the back when we lived out in a village much further out from the main town here. And it was all interesting, as on and off throughout the hobby, right? So there's a whole process in a planted enclosure, planted aquarium. Yeah, I bought some vegan jellies, vegan fruit jellies to represent this. So imagine this is ammonia. What is ammonia? When you defecate, urinate, is ammonia produced? When you pee, the smell of pee is ammonia. And this is not very nice. It comes off rotting things and so on. And things that are feeding on it are actually producing that as well. So what's waste for one thing is food for another. And then when that eats that, it produces a waste. And there's food for another thing, further and further down the line. There's a cycle happening in a well-planted aquarium. First, ammonia. Some plants will take up ammonia as nutrients. Bacteria in the plant, good bacteria, that this is why you're not supposed to, in a filtration unit, don't when you change the filter, don't change the whole thing and clear it all out. That's a stupid thing to do, because now you're going to kill all the beneficial bacteria that is maintaining the heart and soul of your enclosure. And now you've got a big spike in ammonia all of a sudden, because it's not being broken down by the bacteria. So along comes down the bacteria. Ammonia. Tasty. It's going to use that. And the plants are going to use some of this as well. But it will produce a waste product out of that process. It turns into nitrite. And it's questionable. There's like nitrite. Yes, the plants will use some of it. How much depends on the plant. There's kind of a grey area of that. But now things that's broken down. Nitrite. So the plants would produce, and other things would produce nitrate. The plants, I'm a plant now. Nitrite. Thank you, bacteria, you're feeding me. I'm feeding on your poop. Feeding on bacterial waste, right? Things that feed on the nitrite, plants, other things as well, other types of bacteria and so on. Now to produce nitrate. Now it's well known that most plants will feed on a nitrate. It's food. Right? Plants grow, they get maintained. Algae will feed on nitrites and nitrate. Certain types of fish will eat algae. Certain types of snail will eat the algae. Pea puffer fish, probably looking to put in enclosure eventually, will feed on snails. And this is the whole thing, the food cycle. You can breed snails for the pea puffer fish. They eat the snails. Pea puffer fish will also eat tiny scuds. Scuds are, looking them up, I think they're related to the shrimp family, that kind of like the crustaceans anyway. They're easy to breed and maintain. You have these little cultures in very, very small enclosures, because they don't need huge enclosures, and you just maintain those very easily and feed live food to your fish. You can feed pufferfish bloodworms, snails, scuds. When I was a kid, moving seaweed around the rocky rock pools here and there on a beach. Well, we called them sandhoppers. You see these little things hopping around. I caught one once, and that image of my head. Caught one, looked at it in a jar. Went around in there. Very similar to a close-up of a scud, and the scientists are fascinated by scuds because they're a good barometer of water quality. They also has discovered subspecies, many other different species. I mean, these scuds for the aquatic aquarium industry are they're tiny, miniature, really ridiculously small. They found very, very similar looking scuds 5-6 miles down in the ocean. Massive, huge, like this, big chunky thing. And yeah, that was certainly shock to me. There was a video on YouTube about that. Is when swimming around, you think, wow. But I'm going to be keeping shrimp that will feed on algae and other things. There's that going on. They will breed, hopefully. It's from what I can tell, got it right. The type of enclosure I'm getting, once it gets going, they will be breathing. It's different with a mono shrimp. It's a bit more difficult to kind of breed. They will carry eggs, but you're not likely to get fry from them unless you get the right conditions in juice. You need to make the water shallower and introduce it to be a bit more brackish, because that's what happens in their environment in the wild, right? But regardless of that, tiny red cherry shrimp is definitely aesthetically appealing, the visual appeal. I'll be putting those in the enclosure. Or red bee crystal shrimp. It's all different names. A lot of these shrimps are the same species, but they've been bred for color variations that will occur in nature, but it's been selected. And it's been selectively bred by human intervention. This is not like anything detrimental. I mean, look what we've done to dogs. Some breeds of dogs, I think, really should not exist. It's really cruel. They get all kinds of health issues, back legs failing, eyes falling out, French bulldog, all kinds of trouble. There's some inbred out there that calls himself Black Wolf. I wonder what happened there. That's an in joke. Nasty. Putting out there, this is a whole cycle that happens. And if you want a system that is more like very natural, you can't go far wrong with a dirt substrate. You can buy specific dirts that got nutrients already. It's been kind of curated. There's some catabolism on things like that. You can do it in your own kind of homegrown kind of way. But businesses go, oh, we make money out of that. And I'm not really a big fan of capitalism just for the sake of it, but make some exceptions of it. This is totally annihilated and ruined any moral justification for existence in America, I think. That doesn't mean that people with American citizens are immoral. That's another video. It means they're victims of immoral just actions by the greed and the corporation, right? Regardless of that, here we have where I was going, your substrate. Dirt mulch kind of substrate for your plants, a layer of sand, a bit of dirt, 1 to 2 inches, and an inch or 2 to 2 inches of sand on top of that. And again, your plants planted into that, rooted into that. Different types of moss can grow actually on driftwood. All this, it'll help break down these things in the water, the nitrate. You get this cycle producing it, and healthy plants will start pearling. There's something called actually pearl weed as well, which got its name because little bubbles were appearing on the weed that look like little tiny pearls that they just suddenly float up to the surface, creating oxygen from photosynthesis if your tank's lit well enough and routinely enough. But you don't want too much light all the time, because that can throw things out of balance as well. So you got creatures that feed, then they produce waste, which feeds the bacteria, that produces a waste, that feeds the plants, that produces different, you could call it a waste. You got oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange rate as well. That happens with aquatic plants as well as land plants, let's call them. So yeah, at night, plants, is it oxygen at night, or I think the day plants. But I'm thinking about aquatic plants anyway. There's an exchange rate. Photosynthesis. So in a day, plants produce oxygen. I think generally in the photosynthesis range of things. At night, they're putting out carbon dioxide. That's true for the land plants. Is it the other way around with water plants? There's probably the other way around with some plants versus others, whether they're in water or not. Possibly. But the point is, this is an ecosystem. Exchange rate of different energies, and it's like a conservation of energy. Physicists talk, and physics talks about that as the universe will maintain the same energy. No energy is lost, no energy is gained. But the X amount of energy may be spread out over time. I'm not sure you could call actual space energy, but that's again another. Yeah, that's something else to talk about, I guess. For people who know above my head, but the space itself expanding. You got X amount of energy in it expanding out. Get the cooling of the universe. But generally, ecosystem. The idea is one set of energy. If you call it's all energy, right? You can call the plants energy, the occupants energy. You could call the bacteria energy, the gas exchange energy. It's all energy. One thing that energy only ever does is doesn't disappear. Doesn't necessarily arrive out of nowhere, but you probably have an argument with a quantum physicist over that on the quantum scale. Maybe, maybe not. But generally, only one thing energy does is change from one form to another. You get ammonia, bacteria turns ammonia into nitrite. Nitrite feeds the plants relatively, not a huge amount. Nitrate definitely feeds plants. Plants utilize that, produce more plant, and they produce oxygen, carbon dioxide exchange. There's all this cycle going on while everything else is riding on that. You scuds will eat dead matter and breed and use what they're eating to build their bodies. What they're eating generally isn't meat, or they're not carnivorous necessarily, but they will build their body, which a carnivorous occupant will feed on that body. And scuds, they're being bred as food anyway, so they're tiny little crustaceans, extremely prolific if you get the right culture going. And again, culture of bacteria and everything else again is like it's all happening in here. When I get the enclosure, all this is going to be poured into the closure with water once it's planted and everything else, and I let it mature over 3 weeks before I add shrimp in there. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be around 3 weeks, so you get biofilm growing from bacterial cultures on surfaces in the enclosure. You're going to get algae forming, and certainly I want to keep the sides clean, right? But yeah, any algae growing on anything else is fine. I'll be doing water test kits, using water test kits to see if the water quality is okay for occupants further down the line. And this is going to be a fascinating journey to keep this intact, the cycle going. I thought I'd share that fun take with you. Eating these vegan jellies to say, hey, ammonia, yum yum, I'm bacteria. Now I need to go to the toilet because I'm full of this food that is being processed, but they need to produce a waste. So now you're producing nitrite, feeding the plants relatively. They talk about a grey area with that. But when it's nitrate, it's definitely going to feed the plants, which will grow and offer cover for the occupants who are a little bit skittish or need cover to hide from maybe somebody else has been squaring them off a bit. You know, get some territorialism going on between pufferfish. That can happen. Again, when I've seen any video of this, pea puffers, they're relatively happy as long as there's food around and there's places to hide. They're not really that much of a bully. It can be a bit standoffish. They're just warning each other off, and there's nothing wrong with that. Again, it will add some appeal to see, but you don't want that. Let's not go that direction. Like, oh, let's get them annoying each other. No, we don't want to be doing that. If it happens, it happens, and it happens naturally. It's even better. One of those rare events, you know, just one fish squaring off another, and then they go away. So, ooh, you know, it's just interesting. But it's not something, you know, dogs will have a quick bark at each other and they get kind of tired of that because everyone around you seems to have a dog, and when one barks, the whole neighborhood starts barking. Kind of puts me off having a dog. And really, I haven't really got the time and energy to be responsible for a dog. I think it'd be really cruel if I had a dog. You can't really take a fish for a walk. But you got something aesthetically appealing, the aquarium. Once this is going, you know, aquatics is very visually appealing. Shrimp doing their thing. Shrimp are crazy feeders on, you know, see they got these little claw-like hands with like fans on them. They kind of grab like this all the time, and they're feeding themselves. Like you, kind of like crabs. If you look at crabs, they do this a lot. I was feeding on small stuff here and there, and if there's enough feeding going on, there's going to be enough waste going on to feed enough of the bacteria to feed enough of the plants that will grow off of shelter and everything else. The whole cycle will continue. Minimal water changes if the balance can be kept. If I can reach that ideal balance in this experiment, come hobby, if I can reach that ideal balance, the really water changes are just going to be water top up. But I won't be doing is like this. There's no occupants in here other than what's grown in there. You know, there's nothing. I haven't bought any pets going here, and I wouldn't because it's too small anyway. Well, scuds could live in there and breed, but this is a seeding environment. There's bacteria in there. There's algae and all this. So when I get the enclosure, I'll be pouring that in. But that was tap water straight away, put in there, and just letting it ferment. But when it comes to the shrimp, fish, other occupants, what I don't want to do is say, oh, tap water's in, plump, put them in. Bad idea. And bad idea even with top-ups. If you got tap water, let it stand for about a week. You know, some people are saying that's a bit long. You're being a little bit fussy about. I'd say a week in a large tub. Let it stand. Do a water test as well. And if you think there's whatever the water test tells you too high in acidity or alkalinity, or you do a water test with testing metals, and you're dubious about it, get a water treatment kit to treat that water, and then once it's treated, let it stand again, and then top it up. Top your enclosure up with said water. But it's topping up. It's not a big water change. Hopefully, if I get the balance right, it's very minimal water changes, mostly just top-ups. Thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll look forward to doing another video soon. And well, we'll get there. We'll see what we can do. Cheers.